Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, as-salatu was-salam Rasulullah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So alhamdulillah, we are on our second last class inshaAllah ta'ala of Da'wah Dawa. I think it's class 14 if I'm not mistaken, 14 or 13. And alhamdulillah, we've come quite a bit on our journey through the book, which is really a masterpiece on the whole concept of sin in Islam. Last class, we actually got to the real crux of what the book was about, which was the whole answer to the question of how do I stop myself from becoming a victim of my desires. That was the main goal, you can say, of this objective of this entire book. And we spoke about how this was in particular in regards to same-sex urges. We're going to, at least from the book's point of view, take a step back. But Ibn al-Qayyim basically gives his two antidotes, and that's going to be last class. But before we get there, I think it's important for us to remind ourselves of the concept of the battle within. And that's on page 63 of the booklet, The Battle Within. We spoke earlier about the different madakhil, the different entryways that a person can come into sin, whether it be through the eyes, or through the ears, or through the tongue, or even through one's footsteps, and how all these different faculties are gateways into sin. Here, Ibn al-Qayyim extends this further and says not only are these the gateways to sin, but these are outposts. These are outposts. And he gives a military analogy or metaphor, you can say, of the Shaytan and his army with the individual themselves. Now, when I say outposts, an outpost is basically when you have a military camp or a territory of a particular country or force. There's basically outposts that they have that are basically the military protection, or the military outpost that stops people from entering into it. And so if you can take the outpost, then you've taken control of the actual region itself. And so Ibn al-Qayyim says that the eyes and the ears and the tongue, these are all outposts. These are all outposts. So what he does is something very unique and very interesting. He actually starts to speak from the perspective of Shaytan. So in his writing, he writes as if the person that's speaking is Iblis himself, and he's commanding his troops. He's commanding the soldiers, and you'll see the war rallying speech from the Shaytan to his people that's there. This is not a hadith or anything like that, but this is something that Ibn al-Qayyim has creatively written as a way for us to have a deeper understanding of what's happening inside of us. So he says, the king of Kufr says, Malikul Kafara, the king of Kufr, he says to his soldiers, bijunudihi wa asakirihi, his soldiers and his military, he says to them, he comes closer to them, he draws closer to them, and they find that the heart is a fortress. So he says that the king of Kufr, the Shaytan and his forces, they're drawing closer to the heart of the individual because that's really what they want to capture. And they see that there's a fortress that surrounds it. And sitting on the throne of its kingdom is the heart, the qalb itself. Now, the heart's commands, they're executed by its allies and its soldiers surrounding it, fighting and defending its territory. Therefore, there is no attack possible except by infiltrating past these soldiers. So Ibn al-Qayyim is saying that there's the heart, and then there's this fortress around it, and the heart itself, there is the king of the heart sitting on its throne, and it has its own soldiers and allies. And so this is a protected heart. And so this is obviously referring to a person's own, good intentions, desires, good deeds, their iman, their faith, guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the allies and soldiers that basically guide the heart, and the heart makes the commands, and then the body complies with those commands. So then they come to the conclusion, the shaitan comes to the conclusion that there is no attack possible except by infiltrating past these soldiers. Meaning, we cannot get into the heart to control this individual unless we get past the soldiers that are surrounding the heart. So, the king of Kufr inquires about the most distinct officer that is closest to the heart. And it is said to him that the closest officer that's closest to the heart is the nafs. Now, what's the difference between the heart and the nafs? Basically, the distinction you can say is that the qalb refers to the place in which the ruh or the spirit resides. That is the heart. That is where the ruh sits. The nafs is when the ruh and the body come together, and it produces the nafs, the combination of these. And the nafs has some earthly inclinations, but also as well the capacity for spiritual inclinations as well, because it has both the body and the soul as well. And so the so the nafs as an entity is close to the heart. Now the heart is, you can say, purity. The nafs is there, as it said, it can be corrupted. And so the closest officer to the heart that has control of the heart and to be able to then decide what the person is going to do is the nafs. And so Shaytan says to his allies, enter into the heart from the desires of the nafs and see what it loves and what is beloved to it. And then start to tempt him, arouse desires, and engrave its image into its mind, meaning the nafs. And the image is referring to the image of what they desire, during every waking hour and while it is asleep. So basically he wants to get to the heart, but he sees that it's heavily guarded. So he says, how are we going to get past? We need to go to the highest distinctive officer, basically. And they're not bribing him, but they basically need to win that distinct officer over onto their side, for the nafs to defect, essentially. And so how does he wish to do this? He says, find out what the nafs loves, what it desires, what's beloved to it, and start to tempt it, start to arouse it in every waking hour and even while it's asleep. How does it arouse the nafs even while it's asleep? In its dreams. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ said there are 3 types of dreams. There are the dreams from Allah, there are the dreams from the shaitan, and then there are the dreams just from our own memories. These are the 3 from the nafs. These are the 3 different dreams. And so the shaitan does have access to us when we're dreaming and can insert images, ideas, different concepts in our mind whilst we are sleeping. When the nafs starts to find comfort toward it and feels at ease when these desires are present, then release the traps and snares of desire and then drag it to you, meaning the army of the devil. So subhanAllah, they're beating, basically it's like a fishing almost, like the bait is there, right? Or they're trying to hunt an animal, for example, and they're trying to bring them and draw them closer by dangling the carrot in front of them. And so Ibn Qayyim is saying, what Shaytan is saying here, is the shaitan is basically making the person comfortable with feeling the desires that they have. It's not necessarily acting upon it, but being comfortable ruminating on it. That they're comfortable kind of playing in their mind with these ideas in their head. And once that comfort is there, that is where a person can then capture the nafs. And when they capture the nafs, they then bring it into the army of the shaitan. The desires work for you and against him when they infatuate the heart. Then you would have control over the outposts of the eyes, ears, tongue, mouth, hand, and legs. So remain vigilant in all these outposts with all the means you have. So he's basically saying that the desires here are going to work in your favor, meaning the shaitan's favor. They're going to work in your favor against him, meaning the individual, meaning us, when they infatuate the heart. And so these desires now are infatuating the heart. And so now the heart is becoming corrupted by these desires. And he says, when the heart is infatuated by them, and so the entire being of this person is now not just enticed, but they're infatuated, a high level of desire, then he says, now you have control over this entire person. Now you have the outposts there. These are your outposts. And he says the outposts are the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the mouth, the hands, and the legs. Then he says to them, so remain vigilant in all these outposts with all the means you have. Whenever you enter through them to the heart, then he is, I think that's a bit of a typo there. فَمَتَى دَخَلْتُ مِنْهَا إِلَى الْقَلْبِ فَهُوَ قَتِيلٌ أَوْ أَسِيرٌ. So when you enter into the heart from these outposts, then basically the person himself is dead or a prisoner or injured or battered with injuries. Never leave any of these outposts unmanned, and don't allow any other forces to enter through these outposts, because then they will expel you. And so these are the outposts. So this is the individual, this is the imagery of the individual who's gone captive and become a victim to their desires. They don't want to be doing the sin, but they're falling into it. This is a person that does actually not have full control over themselves. The shayateen are there in these various outposts. They're there in these various outposts, and they're the ones calling the shots. Then Shaytan says, if you are defeated at an outpost, then give it all you got. Literally, he's saying, فَاجْتَهِدُوا. This is from the word jihad. He's saying, then give it all you got from jihad. Literally, strive as much as you can to at least weaken the other forces to prevent them from getting to the heart. This is so that even if they end up connecting with the heart, they will be too weak to have any meaningful effect. So what does he mean here? Say for instance, there's an outpost. So say for instance, this person is with their desires. And now they come maybe to a halaqah, or they go to a masjid, or they get counsel from someone, or they're just reading Quran or whatever it may be. Now all of a sudden, there's this foreign entity to them because they've occupied the heart, right? Now this group or this input is coming through the eyes. Now the shaitan or the ears. Let's give one particular example. Let's say a reminder you hear. Maybe you're flicking through your phone and you hear a reminder. So now this reminder is coming through your ears. Now the shaitan is meant to have an outpost over your ears and not allow any good to come through it. But there's good coming through it because of Allah's grace. Or maybe you want to change. And so now there's a battle inside. Do you want to listen to this lecture? Should you not listen to this lecture? And so then the battle is coming inside, and they're trying to ensure that nothing good and pure comes through the ear. And so there's a battle. Now, he's saying, if you're defeated, meaning you decide, you know what, I'm going to watch that motivational talk, I'm going to listen to this, or I'm going to listen to Quran, I'm not going to listen to the music, I'm going to listen to Quran. You make that decision. Then he says, give it all you got to weaken them, so that even once it gets through, by the time it gets through, it's so weak, it's not actually going to affect the heart. That there's so much resistance to it, that you listen to it and you go, sometimes, subhanAllah, a person wants to read Quran and they feel this sense of, they can't get past a half a page, or they can't get past a page, and they just feel this sense of, I want to do something else. That is exactly this. That is the shaitan that is there, that is preventing you and has weakened the input that you're trying to do of the Quran, so that when it comes to the heart, it's pretty much ineffective. And so this is what the shaitan wants to be done. So we go through each of the different outposts and the commands that the shaitan gives at these outposts. So we go to the eyes at first, to the eyes. We come to the eyes. The shaitan says to the soldiers around the eyes of the output there. So when we say the outpost is there, that's now determining what you are going to look at and what you want to look at. So the shaitan says to his soldiers that are there on the outpost of the eyes, so prevent the eyes from being used for any meaningful contemplation, and direct his gaze for just play and amusement. Through that you will achieve transgression, because there is nothing I have found more corrupting to humanity than the gaze. SubhanAllah. That's the experience that he's talking of, the thousands of years of humanity. I have found nothing more corrupting to humanity than the gaze. Now the gaze here can be of many different things. It's the gaze of desire. And it could be a gaze of sexual desire, but it could be a gaze of consumerism as well. You know, people love to go window shopping, right? They love to just go through malls and just look at things. They look at things and it just brings them pleasure just by looking at it. Like, you don't have it, but it's just going through the malls and you're just looking. But that look or that gaze feeds into the heart. It feeds that desire more. It eventually corrupts the heart. It feeds into that materialistic loop, you can say. You look at, sometimes people will look at celebrities, or they'll look at a person and they'll look at their beauty, even for not lusting, but from the same gender, not in a lustful way, but look at it in a sense of, oh, look at this person, he's so muscular. Or a woman will look at, oh, look at this person, he's so beautiful. Oh, look at how many followers this person has. This is all the gaze. And it's all feeding the materialistic desire within us to want and to crave more and more. And this is where the greed of humanity comes from, the hirs of humanity. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that the son of Adam is such, and this is a hadith Qudsi actually, and actually used to be part of the Quran, by the way, but it was abrogated by Surah Takathur. And this is where it is said that if the son of Adam were to be given a valley of gold, then they would wish for a second. This is the human condition. And the gaze is what makes a person want more. They see whatever it may be, property, wealth, social status. A person can see someone in a work area, for example, and they see the respect that they command. All of that, it activates within that materialistic aims. It's not activating contemplation of why you're here and your purpose of life. In fact, it distracts you as to why you're here. You look at things and you focus so much on the outward beauty of things. You focus so much on your own appearance in the mirror itself. You look into the mirror. That's why it is from our tradition that you can actually give yourself the evil eye. You can look at yourself in the mirror, and if you look at it with the eye of consumerism, you can give yourself evil eye. You can give yourself ayn. And this is something that is understood. And so looking at yourself in the mirror, vanity. You're gazing at yourself. If you're going to the gym and you're wanting to kind of, have a nice physique, and you're just constantly gazing at all the lines and all the cuts, and you're getting impressed with yourself, or you're getting disappointed in yourself. This is all from the gaze. And it distracts a person. Because the gaze, the point of the gaze is you pay attention to what you want in life. That's the point. And if what you want in life are things, status, whatever it may be, then that's all the things you're going to look at. And that's going to completely occupy your heart. And that's the point, as you can see here. He says that prevent their eyes from being used for meaningful contemplation and direct his gaze for jest, play, and amusement. Through that you will achieve transgression, because there's nothing I have found more corrupting humanity than the gaze. So I plant these gazes into the heart that turn into seeds of desire, and then I water them with fantasy. I continue to promise and allure him until his resolve becomes very strong. Then I steer him with the reins of desires until his innocence is taken away. But it starts with the gaze. It all starts with the gaze. And once the gaze is there, as he said, the gaze allows that seed of desire to be put into the heart, and then it's watered with umniya. The amani or the umniya of Shaytan is mentioned in the Quran in many places. The Quran will mention different activities of Shaytan. One of them is umniya. One of them is this planting of fantasy or amani, the fantasies inside of a person. And it can be very like lustful fantasies, or they could as well be like daydreaming and just kind of thinking about whatever it may be that's actually not beneficial for your akhirah, where you're so focused on the dunya. This is also amani as well. And so this is one activity of the shaitan. And this Ibn al-Qayyim describes as the watering of the seed that he's planted of that desire, that is watered with allowing your mind to constantly ruminate on these ideas. Now, this can be, like I said, from a lustful point of view, but this can also be from an anxiety point of view. This is another thing of the goal of the shaitan. يُخَوِّفُونَهُ. They wish to make you afraid. One of the goals of shaitan is to make you feel fear. Now, one of the things that people with anxiety struggle with is breaking the loop of that anxiety inducing thought pattern, where it becomes crippling, where they become afraid of something and they ruminate over it and they think about it and it consumes them. Or a person who's depressed over the loss of something and they're thinking about it and they just can't get it out of their mind and their heart. This is from the shaitan. The shaitan wants a person to stay depressed, to be anxious, to be neutralized with desire, to just be stuck. That's the goal of the shaitan, to distract you from your purpose in life, to distract you from having thoughts where you can actually think about your akhirah. And so the shaitan does this in various different ways. Umniya is one of them. The wa'ad of shaitan, the promise, the shaitan can promise a person as well. Now you might think, how does the shaitan promise me anything? Like, I've never met the man. How is he promising me things? The promise of shaitan is that feeling inside of you that you think bad things are going to happen in the future. That you think you're going to become poor in the future. يَعِدُكُمُ الْفَقْرِ. The shaitan promises you poverty. What does it mean he promises you poverty? It's that scarcity mindset or heart that you have. That's the promise of shaitan. It's that thought inside of you, that sense of worthlessness that you have, that you think, if I don't do something or act in a way that's not really me, then people won't like me. These are the promises of the shaitan. If I don't compromise my deen, or if I don't hide my Islam, then I won't get that job. That's a promise of the shaitan. These thoughts you think you're having, those are the promises of the shaitan that he is giving to you. I continue to promise and allure him. And the alluring of the shaitan is the step by step. The thoughts are not random, that he'll just throw certain desires into you, but they will be step by step. He knows what is the next step that you're willing to take. And he allures you along that path. Until his resolve becomes very strong, then I steer him with the reins of desire until his innocence is taken away. That's the outpost of the eye. Now we move on to the outpost of the ear. So the ears, shaitan says to his army on the outpost of the ears, so work hard, fajtahidu, again jihad is used. So work hard to ensure nothing enters the ear except false vanities, because then it makes it easy for the nafs to adorn itself with it. Choose words that are sweet and falsely impress the intellects. Then mix it with whatever the nafs desires. Then you can throw an evil statement, and if you see he inclines towards it, then drag him down with all the next steps. So this is the idea of how people can use language to manipulate you. And you can manipulate yourself as well by just using different language. And in fact, Shaytan did this with Adam alayhi salam. You know, what did he do? He rebranded the tree. The tree that was not given a name, it was just saying, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. Don't go near this tree. Allah didn't give it a name. Shaitan branded it. What did he call it? شَجَرَةَ الْخُلْدِ. The tree of eternity. Made it sound very enticing, right? And that's what people do. And even in our times in society, they rebrand evil to make it sound enticing, to make it sound less immoral. And so, if there's a nude picture or a lewd picture of something, they say, this is art. Or if there's this kind of focus and push to destroy femininity, they say this is female empowerment. Or they will use all these different terms and words to manipulate the way that you see things. And this is also from the shaitan, from the outpost of the ear, to manipulate what you hear. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. Very profound verse here. And thus we have made for every prophet an enemy. And then he describes them, shayateen, obviously the devils, from the ins and the jinn. So the enemies to the prophets, and then also the followers of the prophets, are called shayateen. But we understand there are two types of shayateen. There's the shayateen of the ins and the jinn. That there are shayateen of humanity and shayateen of jinn. Now who are the shayateen of humanity? They are the humans who act like shaitan. They are the humans that seek to divert people away from the truth. They are people who try to delude other people. And it's interesting, from the ins and the jinn, يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ, they are both inspiring each other. So we understand that the jinn and the shayateen will inspire into the human being, and then they will make a statement and that's coming. But the human being will also inspire the jinn as well. It works both ways here. And so the human being can sometimes be in a way and act in a way that the shaitan even in fact is taking notes and saying, oh wow, okay, he wants to go that far, we can do that as well. So they're inspiring each other, the humanity and jinn. And of course we know of an entire world of witchcraft and like kind of black magic and this dark arts world that exists, we believe, as Muslims. And this is where this interaction occurs between the shayateen of ins and jinn. And this is where people decide زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. This is where you get all of the decisions of how they're going to market everything, how they're going to spin everything, how they're going to manipulate things, and the language that they're going to use to be able to do it. And so there is a dark council, you can say, and they push immorality onto society. And we spoke about this last class, by the way, of how they've done that and manipulated an entire culture, the Western culture, from an Abrahamic tradition into what we see it today. And this is exactly شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ زُخْرِفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. And these were the enemies of Isa alayhi salam and his followers. And we've literally seen the effect of that. And you see how the language has evolved in how they understood things. There's a really good, if you're interested in this on a deeper level, a more intellectual level, there's a very interesting podcast by Hassan Spiker and on the Thinking Muslim podcast. And he actually goes through his 5 bifurcations, he describes it, of Western Christendom from different aspects, like separation of religion and state was one bifurcation, separation of like truth from revelation is another one. He goes through all of them, all these 5 ones, until you get to where we are today. And so he talks about these 5 different separations that happen. And in each sense you can see, this is from the shaitan removing the impact of the genuine revelation from the people. By using زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا, by using golden words, decorative speech. But not everything that glitters is gold. And so this is how he brings people, leads people astray. And we see it so clearly when it comes to the propaganda of Israel and America against the Palestinians in Gaza. We see this so clearly, the shayateen al-insi wal-jinn, and how they frame what they're doing. Self-defense, fighting terrorists, right to defend yourselves, all these different words that they use, right? زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. You'll hear also social media influencers as well. زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. The things that they push forward, calling to themselves, people who are egocentric, they will be able to say it in a way that it doesn't seem egocentric and it seems that they're actually genuine. But they're actually deviant and they're actually leading people astray. You'll see people in organizations or in even religious institutions or even religious leadership or whoever it may be, who will speak in a way that, oh, I care about this and for the community, etc., etc. But actually it's زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. It's just deceptive speech that's only focused for their own self-interest. We saw this early on as well for those who were in the Faith Circle Academy for the Aqidah class. We talked about the Khawarij. What was the slogan of the Khawarij? Those who were in the Aqidah class, you can tell me, or if you know it already. What was the slogan of the Khawarij?
We are the reformers.
Not we are the reformers. It was a verse in the Quran, yes.
I don't know the verse.
That's okay, what were you going to say?
That like when they just they don't have any rules.
That was their belief, that was their position, but there was one thing that was their phrase that they would use to justify why they thought everybody else was kafir. إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. This is what they would say. Judgment is only for Allah. This is a verse in the Quran, right? And because of that, they, from this speech, as Ali radiallahu anhu was asked about, what do you think about what they're saying? And he said, kalimatu haqq, it's a true speech. يُرِيدُ بِهَا بَاطِل. But they intend for it falsehood. That a person can even use Quran to actually deceive you and to manipulate you and to put you into deviation by making it all very decorative and sounding so amazing. And so that's why it's really important for us to think deeply about things. So that's the outpost of the ear. Now, outpost number 3, the outpost of the tongue. Shaytan commands his followers when it comes to the tongue, make his tongue flow with what harms him and not what benefits him. Don't let anything beneficial at all come to it from the remembrance of Allah, seeking His forgiveness, recitation of His book, heartfelt advice to His servants, or teaching beneficial knowledge. And so, the tongue and what a person speaks about, he wants it to be removed from all these different things. Now ask yourself, what's the percentage of the day that goes into any of these particular things here? Number 1, remembrance of Allah, dhikrullah. Number 2, asking Allah for forgiveness. Number 3, reciting the Quran. Number 4, giving advice to people and having a genuine conversation and helping them. Number 5, teaching beneficial knowledge. These are the 5 points that he's mentioned. Obviously there's more as well, but the point is this: what percentage of the day is spent with your tongue doing this versus talking about whatever and just going off? And the tongue has been extended to our thumbs as well now, right? WhatsApp and everything like that. What percentage is it? Think about it and think about, what can I do of benefit to my speech, even if it's just dhikrullah. Or if I'm speaking to someone, or if I'm socializing with someone, how can I make it a beneficial conversation? How can I make it something that's beneficial for the dunya or the akhirah in a good, genuine way that Allah will reward me then? How can I turn, whatever encounter I'm in with my tongue and utilize it in a way that will bring me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's not necessarily all about always being in a religious space. It could be a non-religious space, but you can think to yourself, okay, how can I make this something beneficial or productive? Even if it's something like, with the intention, okay, stressful week, this person coming through, I want to cheer them up, or I make them happy, I want to host them in this way, then that's beneficial as well. That's beneficial as well. But sometimes we're stuck on social media, WhatsApp groups, and here and there, and we're on these chats, and we're going and talking about this, sending memes, sending this gif, sending this thing, and just a whole load of whatever, and next thing you know, an hour is gone, and that's all we did. We didn't accomplish anything. Or we get on these chats and we argue with each other, and we're talking about this, that, or the other. Or we're going Brisbane Muslims. So that's from the tongue point of view. Now, it's not just about speaking. Sometimes when you remain silent, that's also from the shaitan as well. Ali al-Daqqaq, rahimahullah, he said, "As-sakitu anil haqq shaytanun akhras, wal-natiqu bil-batil shaytanun natiq." That remaining silent regarding the truth is a silent devil, while the one who speaks with falsehood is a speaking devil. So sometimes if you're in a position to be needing to speak the truth, or stand up for someone's rights, or say something's going wrong and you need to call it out and you're quiet, then a person could possibly be a silent devil because they become complicit. And this concept of complicity is very clear in our religion. It's something that is within our ethical understanding of things, that there is a responsibility for the bystander, that the bystander has an ethical, moral imperative to speak out even if it doesn't primarily concern them. We don't have this concept of just mind your business. Yes, min husni Islam al-mar'i tarkuhu ma la ya'ni. From the beauty of Islam is the one who leaves off what doesn't concern him, personal matters of people. But since when is immorality, injustice, and dhulm a personal matter? Since when is dhulm something that it doesn't concern you? No, dhulm concerns every Muslim, wherever they see it. It should be of concern. And so the imperative to change it in your capacity with wisdom is something that we understand. Now, from wisdom, it might be that you decide that you being involved might make the situation worse. That's fine. That's your genuine ijtihad. But that has to be something that you genuinely believe, not out of fear. That, I just want to do anything because I'm afraid. It has to be, no, I think I'll actually make the situation worse in this case if I get involved. And if that is your conclusion, then you have the responsibility to still care about it, not just say, it doesn't concern me. No. You've seen it, now you're going to think, okay, well, how can it become better? Is there someone else that we can bring on to help the situation? Is there something else that I should escalate? Should I speak to the victim themselves maybe and help them? I have to do something. I can't just see an injustice and sit by. That is not the way of a believer. And that is, as we said, it can be a silent devil. You just let things go behind them. That's not the case. That's not the case. We move on to, so those are the outposts. Now, there's some examples here: ingratitude and anger. And in ingratitude and anger, a person, if they're, filled with ingratitude and anger, it pushes them to speak and say things that are not befitting to them. When it comes to ingratitude, look at this. What Shaytan himself says is one of his main objectives, or is the main objective in this ayah. قال فبما أغويتني لأقعدن لهم صراطك المستقيم. By the way, this is a verse in the Quran. This is not Ibn Qayyim. This is from the Quran. That because you put me in error, who is Shaytan talking to? Allah, subhanAllah. Can you believe it? A person might think he's talking to Adam alayhi salam. No, he's saying to Allah, because you put me in error. He's blaming Allah. لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. I will sit. Qu'ud is like there's jalasa, which is to sit. Then qa'ada is to sit and remain firmly seated there. Like I will position myself. Qa'ada, like that will be my position. Where will Shaytan sit in this world? Siratak al-mustaqim, your straight path. So where do you find most of the shayateen actually? Where's the most activity? Where's the most attention? It's not at the nightclubs. It's not in the, with the drugs. It's not in the music scene. Obviously it's there. You can see it on full blast. But the point is that those are the ones who have gone. And yes, the shaitan is inspiring them, but it's easy. You don't need much back. Shaitan doesn't need to rock up to the club or to the musician, to the rapper with much backup. He just needs to come. He just goes through that and he has direct access to the heart. Where does he need the backup? He needs it on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. That's actually where you'll find much of the shayateen. That's why we have hadith, for instance, where the Prophet ﷺ says when the shaitan hears the adhan, what happens when the shaitan hears the adhan? He runs away and everyone's like, farts. Yes, he runs away, he passes wind, he farts, literally. Why is he doing that? Because he's so afraid, he's lost control of his bowels essentially. He's lost control of everything, that's how afraid he is. When he hears the adhan, subhanAllah. By the way, this is a very profound point for us as well. Realize that the adhan and what it is calling towards terrifies the shaitan. That the salah itself is terrifying to the shaitan, to the devil. Why? Because if you can take advantage of the shaitan, you will find the defeat of your shaitan in the salah. So he runs away and he's terrified when the adhan goes. When the adhan goes. So, but what does that tell you? He's hearing the adhan. He's actually around the masajid until the adhan goes. He's actually around the Muslims. He's not like, okay, I'm over here with the kuffar where there's no adhan. No, he's there. And yes, he goes. You know, subhanAllah, resistance against the shaitan physically harms them. Some of the proofs for this is something Ibn Qayyim mentions. Some of the Salaf, they would say that a shaitan will go to its posse and he'll come with a black eye, like bruised up. And they'll say, what happened to you? And say, I went to so-and-so and I tried to entice him, but he resisted and he responded with dhikr and isti'adha, and so you see how I am today. And Ibn Qayyim connects this and says, when you engage in dhikrullah, when you say a dhikr, so dhikrullah is a light. We understand this. Dhikrullah is nur, it's a light that fills your heart with light when you engage in dhikrullah. Now, he makes this very interesting connection with the shooting stars. So shooting stars, they also carry light, don't they? The comets, you see them, light. Now, what are the comets doing when it's being thrown in the cosmos? What's happening? When you see a shooting star, what's happening? Don't say make a wish. Yeah? Sorry? Yes, it's pelting the shaitan. And it's deterring them from going to hearing the malul a'la and from the, heavenly conversations. So the shaitan is being pelted with light in the heavens. So Ibn Qayyim makes the connection and says, so when you engage in dhikrullah, when a shaitanic impulse comes, then you are pelting the shaitan with light inside of your heart. And that's why you get these narrations that come through that, oh, they come with a black eye. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said that the shaitan, when he sees Umar radiallahu anh, he runs the other way. Because of the strength of his resistance and his dhikr against the shaitan, he is afraid of confronting Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh. Because it actually physically hurts them. It's a very empowering thought. So they're there and they are willing to take the sacrifice and to take the bruises. Why? Because they want to misguide as many people as possible. So qa'ada, they are on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. So they are there on your journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Clarification?
Yeah. Would you say like, so most shaitan focus on like the average sort of Muslim and like the extremes?
It's not a clarification, it's a question, but okay, that's all right. So in terms of the priority of the shaitan, it's not about average versus whatnot, but it's the idea of the stronger shayateen go against the stronger Muslim. Because the weaker shayateen, they'll be finished, right? It's the stronger ones then go for the stronger Muslims. And then with that, there's the whole priority of, if not shirk and kufr, then bid'ah, if not bid'ah, then major sin, if not major sin, then minor sin, if not minor sin, then makruh, if not makruh, then the lesser of two goods. And they if not makruh, then he preoccupies him with the mubah. And if not the mubah, then the lesser of two goods. And that's the level of the prophets. Look what you've done, Haris. Yes, Bismillah, yes.
One shaitan attached to that one person.
We're going to do questions, inshallah, after, inshallah. Bismillah. Just so we can get through the text, inshallah. Bismillah. But that's a good question. Yes, there is, in short answer, there's a qareen, one particular shaitan that is attached to a particular person, but he gets help from everybody else. Yes. So they're doing qu'ud on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. So what that means is that the shaitan is there on your journey towards Allah. You'll find the shaitan in religious spaces. You'll find the shaitan in organizations, amongst the hierarchies, in the masajid, in the boards, all these different things. This is where you will find the shaitan, whispering things, ego, and this. And that's why you find so much fitna and fitan amongst Muslims a lot of the times. Why? Because the shaitan is there to prevent any khair coming from there. And in whispering into everybody's ear, selfishness and desire, and this person said this about you, and this, and wanting your own legacy, all these different things that muddy everything up. And this is a big problem. And this is why I think that true power, we talked a lot about this, and before we had these faith forms and whatnot, and we talked about power and Muslim power. What is it that made the Prophet ﷺ, the companions, and the early generations powerful? What made them powerful was their unwavering spiritual and ethical commitment. That is what made them powerful. It wasn't a particular political strategy. Yes, they utilized it. And sometimes, when we're mentioning this in our messaging of the idea of the Prophet ﷺ taking the means, we sometimes skip the first step. Yes, the means are there, it's important to take, but who is taking the means exactly? It's a purified heart. It's a heart that's not bought and sold. It's a heart that's defeated its own ego. It's a heart that's not interested in its own self-interests. It's a heart that isn't full of its own biases and blind to their own biases. It's a heart that's not deceiving itself into thinking, I'm doing something for the community, but you're only doing something for your own ego. That's who was doing it. And sometimes if we focus just purely on the means and we lose the spirit and the heart behind it, then what is it going to lead to except more fitna and division? What's the proof of this? That's what happened in our history. Once the companions in that righteous generation left hold of power and it went into the hands of the Umayyads, that's when all the division and differences and this king against that king, that's when it all happened. Before that, with the Khulafa al-Rashidun, and the power and the expansiveness of Islam was not anywhere, could not be matched. The Umayyads, in terms of the political strategies, were at the highest level. Their governance structure and everything like this, Abdul-Malik ibn Marwan, building Bayt al-Maqdis, all these things, they were the peak when it comes to Islamic civilization from a worldly point of view. But not from the ethical commitment, the spiritual commitment that actually is the source of the true power of Islam. That's why when Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh said to Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah when he came, And he said, why are you dressed like this? Like dressed how you usually are, basically poor, tattered clothes with mud, holding on to a mule/donkey on your way to Jerusalem, like literally Jerusalem, the city of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and you're dressed like this? What is he thinking? What's the whole means? Oh yeah, decorum, we need to dress, etc., etc. We need to impress people as well so that they will listen to our governance because we're people. Their perception of the Arabs is they are some Bedouin people. Now they said, oh, we're conquered by the Arabs. There's a sense of inferiority complex. Are the people of Syria, Sham, and Palestine at the time, who are mostly Roman, are they going to actually listen to us? Are they going to take our leadership, even though they're going to be the majority? Are they going to actually listen to it? We need to kind of, act like them. We need to kind of show we've got the clout. Umar comes the way he is. Abu al-Jarrah says, why, Umar, why? And he said, why are you out of all people asking me this? Abu Bakr al-Jarrah, radiallahu an, one of the Ashar Mubashara. If anyone other than you were to say this. And then he said that very famous line. نحن قوم, we were a people, أعزنا بالإسلام. Allah gave us izzah through Islam. And if we seek izzah and power through anything other than Islam and our unwavering commitment to it, then we'll only be disgraced. And so when we talk about power, we have to understand reform, individual reform, that ethical, that has to be there. Otherwise, you will only get fitna and fasad and division and corruption, and that's what's happened since the Khulafa Rashidun up until now. Now, yes, you can get, definitely, don't get me wrong, there's obviously khair in it. I'm just saying that power that you're wanting, that power that is going to be bringing about khair in this world, I should say, is not going to be there unless there is that spiritual revolution, the ethical revolution that accompanies it as well. And it's balanced. It's not just that, it's also along with the strategy as well. And so both of these things have to come together. I have no idea where we started from that. But anyways, going back to the shaitan. So ingratitude. So getting to the point of the ayah. ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. Then he will come, I'll come in front of them, behind them, right to them, left of them, and you won't find many of them grateful. So ingratitude is one of the ways in which a person speaks, complaining, constantly complaining. People who complain about everything, complain about their life, complain about their day, complain about the traffic, complain about their work, complain about their school, complain about their courses, complain about their exams, complain about their family, complain about their wives, about their husbands, complaining. This is the ingratitude, and that's with the tongue. The outpost of the tongue, filling the tongue with complaints rather than remembering the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the key there. And the example of anger is there as well, of course. When a person is angry in the acute setting, they lose control of what they say, and it's written on their scales, vulgarities, anger, dhulm even as well, as they scream and shout at another person, make them feel hurt and pain, etc., etc., abuse. This is from anger. And this is what the shaitan wants to do, is to anger us as well. If the anger settles, and it's particular to one person, then it turns from just simple anger to resentment. And resentment also, anytime that person is spoken about, go into the backbiting, right? That cycle. Oh my God, this guy, you feel that anger and you just want to get it out, and it all comes out. It all comes out, and the whole pattern again. That's the resentment that a person holds. And that is the stronghold of the shaitan with the tongue. We come to the spiritual shadow personality. So Ibn al-Qayyim says, well, shaitan basically says, the two greatest assets you have against the individual is ghafla and shahwa, heedlessness and desire. Ghafla is heedlessness, meaning ghafla is a person that is just distracted from their purpose. They're not necessarily doing an action, but they're not doing anything. Someone just watching TV, just in ghafla, listening to music, just doing nothing basically with their life. That's ghafla, right? اقترب للناس حسابهم وهم في غفلة معرضون. That the hour is coming closer, their accounting is coming closer, day by day, month by month, year by year, and we're coming to a cycle of the Gregorian calendar. Year by year, you're getting closer to your hisab, your individual hisab. وَهُمْ فِي غَفْلَةٍ. But they are completely heedless of it. They're not thinking about it. مُعْرِضُونَ. And some of them even turning away from it. If you try to remind them of it, they say, hey, don't talk to me about all this religion stuff, man. Hey, man, when did you become a sheikh? Just leave it off, man. So, this is ghafla. Then shahwa is desire. And desire is to actually commit to an action of sin. And so these are the two things, ghafla and shahwa. And he says, ista'inu ala al-ghafla bil-shahwat. You make them more heedless and ghafil by increasing in the shahwat. وَعَلَى الشَّهَوَاتِ بِالْغَفْلَةِ. And you increase their desire by making them ghafil. So it's a cycle. It's a negative satanic cycle. Now, then he says, interestingly, and then he says, and know and realize that some of them, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ مِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَكُونُ سُلْطَانُ الشَّهْوَةِ عَلَيْهِ أَغْلَبُ. That for some people, the authority of desire is more dominant. وَسُلْطَانْ غَضَبِهِ ضَعِيفٌ مَقْهُورٌ. And they're not very angry people. Like their anger is very low. It's hard to get them triggered and angry, but you can rouse their desires. And then the opposite. There's some people, you can't get them into their desires and lust, but they get angry very quickly. So this is the whole shadow type, you can say. So you have a personality type. This is the personality of your, this is a Jungian term, forgive me for using that, shadow. But this is basically the nafs amaratum bisu, basically. Like you have your general personality, you have a spiritual personality. If you're interested in that, Soul's Asserted paper I've written along with Dr. Nazir on Yaqeen Institute. And then there is the nafs amara bisu personality type. Are you desire dominant or anger dominant? There are some people, they're anger dominant. What does that mean? They're prone to doing dhulm on other people, abusing other people, screaming and shouting at other people, controlling other people, dominating over other people. That's that type of evil that the shaitan wishes to extract from that person. They have a short temper. They're generally maybe stronger people. That's why. And so their anger can get the better of them, and it pushes them to just hurl abuse and be a force of dhulm. The other hand is a person who don't confuse your weakness by being, a forgiving, merciful person. Or you being harmless, don't confuse that with virtue. It's just because you're not anger dominant. A person who's weaker, more timid, more fearful, they don't want to get afraid. Why don't they get afraid? Because they're afraid of getting afraid. They don't want to get into an altercation with somebody else. So they're afraid of it. That's not virtue. You controlling your anger because you're afraid to confront another person, that's not virtue, that's fear and cowardice actually. So oftentimes people think, oh yeah, this is a good thing about me. No, not necessarily. So a person who is desire dominant, but their anger is low, and they think I'm harmless to another person, right? I'm not harming another person, but they're suffocating their own souls. And that's the amanah that Allah has given them. They're harming themselves with their desires. And this is the type that the West does not recognize as an ethical spiritual weakness. The West doesn't think that this is a weakness, being desire dominant. In fact, the West celebrates this. That's why they say as long as you don't hurt anyone. What are they focused on? Anger dominant, right? But desire dominant, they have no concept of it. They have no concept of the idea of harming your own soul and your own self. But not just that, violating principles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator, has set down in this world. That there's a moral imperative we have to Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah created this. And so we have an ethical imperative to abide by what He has laid down of the law. And of what the order of nature should be. And about what is the regulation of our desires and our appetites. And an indication of the evilness is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made evil things that are desire dominant also destructive from a dunya point of view. Like that's not the reason why we don't, overeat or engage in lust and zina because we look at all the worldly things and say, no, that shouldn't be the reason. But Allah has made that as an indication just to show, look, it's evil, and from that evil shows how the evilness occurs even in yourself as well. So desire dominant versus anger dominant. And based on that, the shaitan will attack you from which angle. And so this is important. Know yourself. Know yourself. Are you desire dominant or are you anger dominant? Are you equal of both? Are you someone that, from a desire point of view, you feel like you have good control, but man, you just get angry and you act out, and then you'll just lash out at people, you start backbiting people, slandering people, or you confront them and you're just constantly getting into fights? Or are you someone who is conflict averse, but just falls into these desires, these quote unquote victimless desires, but you are the own victim there? Now, we conclude with the final battle. So then it is said, realize that what will help you the most in remaining at these outposts, the outposts of the eyes, the tongue, the ears, the hands, the mouth, etc., is the thriving of the nafs ammaratum bisu, the nafs that commands the evil. So seek aid through it and help to sustain it, and then you can gain your sustenance from it. Then be Allah. And so this Ibn al-Qayyim mentions that the sustenance of the shaitan inside of you, what grows the shaitan inside of you? It's evil deeds and sin. The more you sin, the more it grows the shaitan. It's interesting. It's similar to like, you know, our gut microbiome, right? They say the bad bacteria that can overgrow it. When you eat bad, then what grows? It's the bad bacteria that grows. And then that can lead to even like reduction in like serotonin production and all these different things and all these different problems. The more junk you eat, all high carb stuff, all the evil, the shayateen of the bacteria, they're the ones that take over the gut. And then and that's the whole gut-brain axis, etc. And that is actually has a huge impact on you. Similarly, when it comes to the spiritual entities inside of you, so that's not the bacteria and the viruses, but these are the angelic presences versus the satanic presences. Good deeds, overgrowth of the angels. Just like good diet, overgrowth of positive bacteria that actually is positive for your gut-brain axis and your gut-brain health. When it comes to sin, then it's overgrowth of the shayateen inside of you. When it comes to good deeds, it's an overgrowth of the angelic presence inside of you. Then be alongside it, meaning the nafs al-mara bisu, in its fight against the nafs mutma'inna, the tranquil soul. So strive to destroy it and remove its power. The only way to do that is by cutting off its life supply. So when its life supply is cut off, and the life supply of the nafs ammara is strengthened, then its allies will obey you, and the heart will fall from its fortress and lose its power. What is the life supply of the nafs mutma'inna? It is your iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything that comes from that channel of recitation of Quran, of good deeds, of dhikrullah. This is the life supply of the nafs mutma'inna. The nafs mutma'inna, the life supply, what's hooked onto it, it will die off, it will be cut off if these things are removed. So then he says, when you cut off its life supply and you strengthen the nafs ammara, then its allies will obey you, and the heart will fall from its fortress and lose its power. In its place, the nafs ammara bisu ascends to power, commanding whatever it craves and loves. It will never come with anything that isn't pleasing to you. Isn't pleasing to you, Shaytan is referring to you, meaning the shayateen, like pleasing to the shayateen of what you're doing. And it will never oppose you in anything you advise it to do. In fact, whenever you ask it to do anything, he will rush to implement it. If you perceive any rebellion from the heart and you want to be safe from that, then establish a marriage between it and the nafs and make it seem beautiful, enticing make it seem beautiful, enticing, and find the most beautiful image of a bride to show it. Then say to it, the heart, feel the sweetness of this connection and enjoyment with this bride, just as you have experienced war along with its injuries and strikes. Then compare the pleasure of this reconciliation with the bitterness of these battles. So drop the burdens of war, because it's not just a one-day affair. Rather, it is a war until death, and your power will continue to weaken as the battle rages on. This is the battle that continues inside of us, and there is so much there of what we just discussed that shows the power of the shaitan and how he tries to manipulate us, and how many of the things that we think, speak, etc., are these plots of the shaitan within us. The most important takeaway from today is to reduce and try to remove that satanic overgrowth within us and replace it with the angelic presence. How do we do that? It's by having the right environments. I want us to focus on that, environments. The Prophet ﷺ also focused on this point as well when he said, a person will not, the angels will not enter the house in a house where there's displaying images and there's dogs and these sorts of things that are there. This is the idea of paying attention to your environment. Who are you spending time with? Not just individual, even within WhatsApp, those groups. Those are people bring their shayateen to your social interactions. If a person doesn't say Bismillah before he starts eating, the shaitan is eating alongside of you. If a person doesn't say Bismillah when he enters into his home, his shaitan enters inside with you. Beware of who you're spending time with. And what are the environments around you? Even sometimes we can become a bit complacent with these things as well. Like just, obviously if a person goes to a place and there's music in the background and whatnot, you're not going there for the intention of it. You're just going there for food, restaurant, out for a good time, that's fine. But it's the idea of not becoming numb to that and realizing, okay, like this is a place where the shayateen are there now. Like obviously you go here and there, but frequenting places like this, right? Where you're just constantly going to this coffee shops or whatnot, you're just always there. And that's the input, right? You're just always there, hanging out there, and that's the environment. Or what you're watching, the shayateen through the screen, of the themes that are there, and the characters that are there, and the swearing, and the vulgarity, whatever it may be. These are the environments, these are the inputs. Replace it with angelic, tawheedic, religious, spiritual things. And that will be something that will help us in our battle. Now, Ibn al-Qayyim will concludes the book with the 2 antidotes, and that's going to be our final class, inshaAllah ta'ala, next week as we complete and do a khatam of Da'u wa Dawa, alhamdulillah. Very exciting. That's for next class, inshaAllah. And so we'll conclude, inshaAllah ta'ala, for this class now.